guys, it's been a long time since I was on here last. Had a bit of a hiatus, I guess. We got back about a week and a half ago to our marina on the boat, and it's been rainy, windy, and really cold the whole time we've been here, basically. So Max and I have been cuddled up together for the most part. And then we've just been doing some unpacking. Yeah. But today we're going to get back into holding your family together. Hi, whoever's watching. We're going to get back into holding your family together. And we are on step 5, bless, part 2, broken hearts and missing pieces. Okay. So when a child wanders, in the last chapter, we read a letter from a mother who was heartbroken because the son she raised in Christ had wandered. She regularly wept on his bed in prayer, waiting for him to come to his senses and return to the joy and hope of Christ's love. What can a Christian parent do when their children leave the loving arms of the church and abandon everyone who loved them, nurtured them, supported them, and made them who they are? What would you say to a parent of a child who wander away, of children who wander away after they trained them in the way they should go, who reject the hope that is in them, who abandon everything the parent stands for, everything the parent knows can give their children a stronger, more beautiful, more meaningful, and hopeful life? What can you do? What should you do? What if that parent is you? First, hold fast in prayer. Remember that you are not the Holy Spirit. That job is already filled, and thank God for that. Second, hold fast to the promises of God. Do you think for one moment God will not be faithful if you have marked your children, named them, claimed them, christened them, dedicated them, or baptized them? Will not the Father take care of and protect his own children? Come on, God is faithful. God is going to get them. The shepherd will not rest until he brings them back. Jesus made it clear that this is the nature and relentless power of our loving God. Third, recognize that your timing is not God's timing. God will do his work in his way on his time. As much as it would bring you joy if your children came back today, realize this might not happen until they are 24 or 34 or 44. Remember that the promise of Proverbs 22, bring up a child in the way he should go, ends with, when he is old, he will not depart from it. Emphasis added. That might not be until they are 64, but you have to believe that God's promises are true. Receive it, cling to it, celebrate it. You do your job and let God do his. For now, each night that you are blessed to have them under your roof and under your care, look into their eyes, smile, cry, smile, mark them, bless them, touch them, and brand them with the cross. This nightly gift and marking will sink deep into their psyches and souls, reminding them they've been marked by love. They belong to God. They are part of the herd. No matter where they go or where they wander, God is going to find them. God is going to get them. God is going to protect them. God is going to bring them back home, period. If they know Christ and have experienced his loving, healing presence and blessing in your home, they will come back. But if they have no recollection of his loving touch in your gentle hands and gracious heart, then they can't come back. You can't come back to a place you've never been. So whatever your situation and whomever you might have living under your roof, don't let a single night go by without giving the gift of your complete love and attention, sharing highs and lows, turning and returning to the word, talking about how it might apply to your lives, praying for one another's highs and lows, and offering a physical blessing. You won't have these children forever. They'll be gone before you know it. In a very real sense, all parenting is an intentional interim ministry. So ministers, do your duty. Tend the flock of God that is in your charge. Get the issues of the day out in the open. Get real, deal, and heal. And then end each day with a loving, inclusive blessing. Mark your children with a kiss and a cross. Let them know every night as you hold and enfold them in your arms just how precious they are to you and to God. Let them hear again and again who they are and whose they are. Bless and release and let God do the rest. You can count on God's power and love to bring them back. I sure do. What happens to a child who isn't blessed? How important is a blessing to a child. Pastor Keith Andrew Spencer once shared a sad story about a woman who called late one night crying on the phone. The woman's mother had just experienced a stroke and was dying. I still don't know if she ever loved me, the sobbing woman said. Now I'll never know. The woman who called was Andrew's mother. She was 68, grandma died, and his mother never knew if she had ever been loved or not. This is what happens to a child who isn't blessed. Perhaps the line from Simon and Garfunkel's I Am a Rock captures it best. Hiding in my room, sealed within my tomb, I touch no one and no one touches me. I am a rock. I'm an island, and a rock feels no pain, and an island never cries. A rock feels no pain. An island never cries. Maybe not until it takes so much heat that it shatters and explodes. Then everyone cries. The daddy blessing void. Perhaps the best way to understand what happens when parents fail to bless their children can be seen in what I call the daddy void, which could just as easily be called the daddy blessing void. In my opinion, we don't have a teenage violence problem in this country. We have an absent father problem. Just consider some of the data. On the top 50 serial killers in the last 100 years, 49 were male, and those males accounted for between 1,631 proven and 2,581 estimated murders. In the last 30 years, there have been 62 school shootings in the United States, and 61 of those 62 shooters were male. A few years back, the FBI did a study of 17 school shooters and only found two things in common. All were boys, and nearly all had a father problem. As NFL pro Bill Glass states, there's something about it when a man doesn't get along with his father. It makes him mean. It makes him dangerous. It makes him angry. Newton, Connecticut, or Aurora, Colorado, Columbine, Colorado, Virginia Tech, Virginia. While genetics might have been the culprit in some of these cases, I am haunted by the question as to how many of these young men would have turned out differently if they had been raised with a father who opened up his heart every night, asked them to share their highs and lows, and closed each day by laying his hands on them with loving words and a gentle blessing. As author Frank Hammond writes, the benefits of the Father's blessings are far-reaching and readily make the difference between success and failure, victory and defeat, happiness and misery in an individual's life. The absence of the blessing makes for the curse to lay hold. Sadly, even when a father is physically present in our homes today, he is often emotionally absent from the nightly care routine. Our families, our nation, and our world need men to both grow up and show up. We need fathers to get out of the stands, get into the game, and step up to the plate. We need women who are strong enough to settle for nothing less in a man than a true father who is there physically, emotionally, and spiritually for their children. An emotionally abusive father may be worse than no father at all, but a father who abandons his children every night while in the same house may do far more damage than one who walks out the door and never returns. Either way, we have a father problem. Either way, we have a systematic disease in our society that we must attack, or it will continue to attack us. Either way, we need a father solution. Invisible sailing ships. I recall an old college professor teaching about the Native Americans who first saw the huge European sailing ships. They didn't know what they were seeing because of their lack of exposure, their lack of frame of reference. The ships were virtually invisible to them. They didn't see the ships because they had never seen them before. They only saw strange clouds. There's a strange paradox on the nature of sight. When it comes to your eyes, you can't see what you haven't seen. Because the Native Americans had never before seen ships, they couldn't see them when they were right off the coast. Neurologically, sight isn't really sight. It's an array of photons hitting the retina, bouncing to the optic nerve, and flying past the linguistic phonic centers in the prefrontal cortex. Because of this, the static firings of a billion wirings must be interpreted in multiple areas of the brain all along the way. This array of firings and wirings can only be interpreted through the lens of what the brain has already seen and already knows. If the brain hasn't seen the pattern before, it doesn't know what it is looking at. The human brain can't build anything unless it has the building blocks already in place. Taking this one step further, you can't learn what you don't know, what you don't already know. You can't see what you haven't already seen. You can't be what you haven't seen someone else be. You can't become anything unless someone has gone before you to show you the way. The what, the how, the who. You need a frame of reference, a frame of reverence. You can't be what you can't see. This is why a boy who grows up with zero exposure to a strong, loving, wise, and healthy male role model, will have a nearly impossible time learning how to become one. When he enters adolescence, the testosterone flood that comes with it may push away from his mother and lead to him being raised by the media, video games, and peers. He might as well be raised by a pack of wolves. One of the first laws of physics is that a vacuum will always be felt. The boy will look for a father figure in a teacher, a coach, a youth worker, or a gang leader on the streets. But that surrogate father will never be what a daddy could have been. That person will never fill the psychological, sociological, and neurological void that someone who tucks him in every night will fill. That boy will grow up never knowing exactly what he missed, but vaguely aware that he wasn't worth enough to be known, to be friended, or to be loved. He will never know the feeling of being led and guided by an emotionally available man who would literally lay down his life for his beloved son. He won't know what a real daddy is, nor will he know how to become one. If a boy doesn't see it, he can never be it. Likewise, a girl growing up without a loving, encouraging, protecting father will seek to fill that void in any way she can. 90% of women and children in prostitution were abused, not nurtured, cherished, and protected by the males in their lives. According to Dr. Paul Dabrowski, fathers teach their daughters about men both through their stories and through personal example. Being the very first man she has ever encountered and fallen in love with, fathers show their daughters they are valuable and precious and will always, always be protected and safe, but that they have guts and strength and resolve no less than a man. If he can see to it, he will always be there for you to help, to remind you of who you are when you are confused or stressed, and that you are not just any girl or woman, a statistic in today's confusing social and romantic arenas, or a cog in a corporate wheel, but his daughter. The virtually single mother. Hey, Baxi. I know that I have shared above about the daddy void is a harsh truth because there are so many. Stop. No, don't eat the book. Don't eat the book. Because there are so many wonderful, caring, and sacrificial single mothers out there who are doing their best to raise sons and daughters with zero emotional or financial support from the father. I also know there are millions of marvelous and exhausted married moms who out there who are by default taking responsibility for 100% of the spiritual lives of their children. The male figure may be providing physically and financially, but he has not made a deposit into his children's spiritual bank in years, if ever. For all practical purposes, these brave and caring moms are serving as spiritual single parents. However, the more I study the neurology of infant, toddler, and teen development, the more I have come to believe two politically incorrect conclusions. I know I'll take some heat for this because of the present mood and cultural climate that often considers men irrelevant in the raising of children. I'm sorry if it hurts, but here it goes. Politically incorrect conclusion number one. Single moms, here's my difficult advice for you. I believe there is no substitute for a healthy, loving, encouraging, emotionally available daddy who is there for his children. Psychologically, sociologically, financially, and neurologically speaking, there is no substitute for a father who believes in his children, cheers for his children, dreams with his children, and schemes with his children. There is no substitute for a daddy who blesses his children, takes the wild and sometimes rocky ride of adolescence with his children, and gives his children the consistent message that they are terrific. Agree or disagree if you wish, but here are the statistics. 90% of runaways are fatherless. 90% of repeat arsonists are fatherless. 85% of all youth in prison are fatherless. 85% of those who exhibit behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists motivated with displaced anger lack a father. 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers are fatherless. 71% of pregnant teenagers lack a father. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions lack a father. Statistics also show that preschoolers who do not live with both biological parents are 40 times more likely to be sexually abused. A child without a father is 32 times more likely to end up homeless and on the streets, 20 times more likely to exhibit behavior disorders, 14 times more likely to become a rapist, and 5 times more likely to commit suicide. Single moms, no matter how hard you try, you cannot fill this emotional void alone. If there is no healthy male in your child's life right now, get to your church, get to your family, or get to the local boys club and call out a grandpa or a surrogate uncle to commit to regularly sharing highs, lows, prayers, and blessings with your children. Do it in person, via Skype, or on the phone, but start tonight. Then do it every night. There is simply too much at stake for your precious children's futures. For those moms who have a man in the house who isn't lifting his share of the spiritual weight, your message to him tonight and every night from this day forth needs to be crystal clear. If you're not tucking my babies in bed, you're not getting in bed with me either. Politically incorrect conclusion number 2. Single dads. Here's my difficult advice for you. I am convinced from a neurological standpoint that not only do children need a healthy father figure, but they also need a healthy, loving, touching single mother. Children need a mother for cuddles, comfort, confidence, and care when they are small. There is no biological, hormonal, or immunological replacement for the hugs, kisses, comfort, laughter, and even scoldings that come from a mother. From the very start, a mother imprints love, life, and health to her children. Because a baby's ears are fully operational, myelinated in the womb, the baby is born already knowing and preferring his or her mother's voice and knowing his or her mother's songs. A surrogate mother will always be playing catch up with both bonding and baby brain development. It can be done, but she will have to work overtime in the early years to compensate for not being the birth mother. For a girl to turn into a healthy, secure woman and a healthy mother herself one day, she needs to know a mother. She needs to grow up with one. It will be nearly impossible for her to play that role herself one day if she has received no role model. As Queen Elizabeth once responded when asked how she learned to be queen, I learned the same way monkeys do. I watched my mother. Likewise, for a boy to turn into a healthy man who respects, loves, and cherishes women, he needs a healthy mother for his brain development and a nurturing and respectful father for his social and emotional development. So for you single dads, if your child does not have a steady, consistent, healthy, loving mother figure in his world, you need to find one to serve in a surrogate capacity. Get to your church, get to your family, get to your neighbors, and beg, bribe, and cajole a healthy, strong woman to embrace your children in that role. It's just too important not to have one. A child without a mother or a completely committed and available surrogate mother figure will grow up with poverty in her neurons and a hole in her soul. You can't fill this role. Loving to know and knowing to love. Now that I've made these 2 statements, let me back up for a moment and explain the science behind these conclusions. In her book, Loving to Know, Esther Meek writes, rather than knowing in order to love, we love in order to know. There's another beautiful line that struck me. We are born into someone's arms. I recall a professor back in college saying that we are born believing that the world is simply an extension of ourselves. The universe revolves around us. It isn't until later in our development that we come to see others, as individuals other than ourselves. This makes me wonder about our fundamental attitude toward life, love, and existence. When we enter the world, we will perceive our universe to be a welcoming place or a hostile one. Will it be one in which our basic needs will be met? Will it be a place where we will be loved, where we will be safe? As our neurons begin to focus and comprehend, a healthy mother and father will emerge from this fog as the answer to all our immediate and essential questions. Mother is the first other we will experience, as she represents a connection with our inner selves. To us, she is life, she is sustenance, she is safety, she is touch, she is food, she is love. As we grow, we begin to develop a will and self of our own within our mother's gaze and embrace. Our father joins as we take our first steps, say our first words, make our first falls, and do our first everything. Our parents' applause guides us and goads us on. We are born into someone's arms, and those arms surround us, shape us, and shield us. They fundamentally represent the folding and scaffolding that enable us to become the person who emerges. Without the presence of these healthy parents in our lives, there will be no healthy us. It is as simple and as complex as that. There is a reason God made us male and female. There is a reason the two become one when a baby is born. See Genesis 2, verse 24. This isn't so much about sex as it is about life. A child needs a mother and a father. So again, if your children don't have these types of role models in their lives, for their sakes, go and find one. You owe it to them. You owe it to you. You made this child, and now the child can make you. God gave you this gift. Now gift this child with their best chance. All right, guys. So part 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 is 10 pages. So we're going to stop here at part 2. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye, guys.